This topic needed a video of its own. PvP used to be the core and the spirit of Black Desert. Over the past year, it's seen a significant decline. And in this last ball, they spent quite a bit of time talking about it. Yesterday, I went through the Calpheon ball notes and talked about what stood out for me. I didn't spend time on this because it requires a bit more attention than just breezing over it that, oh, they talked about this and that. PvP was the spirit of the game. It used to be what drove us to the game, drove us to grind for gear, organize with each other, join guilds, practice, get better at the game, and it was a driving factor for a lot of players. I understand the new generation of BDO players, they came into a different game with different expectations and different experiences. So if you weren't around during those years, you probably don't really care about what I'm talking about. But I feel like there is a future where we can have both aspects of the game. There just needs to be the will to implement such features and take such a direction. So on screen, we have the new director, Jasuk, and in the Calpheon Ball, they spent time talking about the PvP history of Black Desert. And honestly, I'm very glad that finally someone even hints at noticing our experience in the game in the past. I mean, I'm not going to judge based on words spoken. One thing I hate more than anything in the world is when I go through a struggle and someone says, I understand. Like, no, stop. That doesn't do anything for me. It's a good first step, but you know, we have to see where they go with this. The Calpheon Ball notes didn't look too exciting in terms of PvP. I mean, they had some new things cooking with that hardcore server and whatnot, but honestly, there needs to be more to it. They need to literally rebuild the core of the game, and it's not an easy thing to do. You can't please everybody. But what I'm gonna do in this video is we're gonna go over the gist of what he said. I'm not gonna react to the entire video. It's gonna be too long. But I'm going to talk about the main points and we're going to go through all of those points so we can discuss if I do see them bringing PvP back. Without PvP, this game is just a PvE grind simulator. And, you know, the PvE isn't too bad. Like, some of the encounters are pretty good, but it's still very small in terms of what they need it to be for it to be a truly PvE game, which is, it's not. It wasn't designed to be. Is designed to be a hardcore PvP MMO, and over time the interest of the audience has steered towards more PvE content, but there's no reason we can't have both. Let's have all the variety of content in the game and let's enjoy everything, right? Anyway, let's get started here. So the first thing our friend here talked about was some of the memorable moments in BDO history. He called out things like Man Up and the Game of Guild series and stuff. Those are things which are kind of iconic in our community, at least for the OGs who were there. Trust me, Game of Guilds, the barcode one, that was my favorite video. It was great. I loved it. There were a lot of moments like that. In the beginning of BDO, we didn't have a mega server. We had individual servers, which had like 5 or 6 channels, I forget. But each individual server had its own community, its own PvP guilds, and the scene was popping because the world was really small. The BDO world had very few grind spots back then. You know, we were like buzzing to get those plus 15 gears. Remember the Grenils, the Heaves, getting them to ultimate? I mean, we were over the moon if we had that, you know? When we got Libertos, man, it was a different time. And the PvP was also different. Like, it was openly accepted in the game that there is going to be PvP. People will flag up, sometimes for no reason, just because they saw you. It was literally on site. There was no DFS, there's no chit chat. If you saw someone in a place you were grinding or wanted to grind, flagged up and you jumped them. Then you started grinding, recover some of the karma you spent because it cost way less karma back then to kill somebody in the open world. And by the time they come back, you know, you grinded a bit, then you fight them again. And if it was like Sawsons or something, bro, it was party v party. It was crazy. It was a different game. And the thing is, because it was so few channels, so few grind spots, world bosses were PvP enabled, And node war drama would always start fires. Fighting over grind spots always started fires. The drama and the PvP scene was so entertaining and it was so fun. The game had spirit back then and you wanted to get good at the game so you could perform well in PvP, and it really shined a lot more back then than it did a year ago. You know, when you were grinding like DFS and stuff. Like DFS is great, but this was on another level. The fight didn't stop until someone gave up. And usually it escalated. And that led to like a lot of evenings just PvPing, man. Just guild war, guild war, guild war. And I know some people just want to chill and grind, but back then, you know, it wasn't as difficult to reach that gear score than it is now. Like the gap wasn't that huge. You still needed to grind. Like you had to put your head down and just grind for a few hours every day to stay competitive, but it was different. It was different. The whole vibe of it was different. Then they talked about like the era that came after. Like they talked about the era of the strong guilds and you know how that changed the PvP scene. It built a hierarchy and things became more political. There is a meme that, you know, is commonly known that the fights are scripted. And I'm sure in some regions they actually handed Castle over or something. But for the most part, when I was PvPing over the past few years, it was scripted to a certain extent to fix the imbalance in the game where, yes, people are going to ally and it's going to be an unbalanced fight and a lot of people aren't going to have fun. So they try to even the sides and fight like that and try to put their own rules. Oh, no cannons or something, you know? But basically hierarchies formed and politics were rampant, and what he was saying was, you know, because of those politics, people were less inclined to start fights and start wars like used to happen that would span entire nights. And that kind of led to the deterioration of PvP and, you know, scripted fights. And then instead of strong guilds trying to take out other strong guilds, it was strong guilds bullying weaker guilds and, you know, just keeping their castles and not really trying to rock the boat in a sense. And they acknowledged that they made some bad decisions in hindsight. But of course, if you asked me right then and there, I would have said, nah, bro, don't do it. They asked anybody who played the game, most of them would say, don't do it. But, you know, that's in the past. It's already happened. Still ragging them for that isn't really going to do much. But just because they do understand our history, I mean, I'm grateful that they do, because this is our story, right? This is all things that we've experienced, whether in person, in the thick of it, or watching content, being in Twitch chat and Lakari chat when things were going wild, right? It's our story. At the end of the day, it's what we experienced together as a community. So I'm glad that they finally acknowledged things that happen over here in the North America side and the EU side. But I am not going to be optimistic. I'm going to wait to see what they do. The changes that they proclaimed in Calpheon Ball, some of them were good. Like CC resistance is gone. Great. You know, that was something that we always asked for. You know, it shouldn't be an RNG factor in PvP. It should be a skill factor. And of course, gear factor. I know you guys grinded hard, but still, it's a step in the right direction, but it's only a drop in the bucket, right? It's not going to bring the community back to its fullest. And one thing they also recognized was, you know, the importance of the PvP player. You know, he went on to say that players are spending too much time PvEing and don't have the time to PvP because there's always new items coming out and grinding. Grinding takes precedence to catch up and whatnot. And that's very much true. The amount of new items they've added is obnoxious. And I understand the reason they added sovereign weapons in Khazard. And I think that was a good thing they added it. Compared to like back in the days when, you know, people would go 0-50 for pen black stars. I think this is a better method. It is more modern. But considering the fact that we've already been through so much grind and finally we got it, you know, it's a bit bitter because, you know, we've already endured so many hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of hours, right? So tough pill to swallow, but it is a better system than they had in the past. Is it better overall than other game systems? No. There are games with way better gearing systems, and I'm not even going to go into those. But yeah, they also talked about other things like PvP requiring too many consumables than what we were getting out of rewards. So they were going to buff rewards in like RBF and stuff and change RBF to, he didn't talk about it here specifically, but later in the video talked about RBF gonna be matchmaking and stuff. Listen, those are all small changes which are good, but it's not enough in my opinion. I think step in the right direction. If they can implement it in a timely manner and don't use that as like a main content drop. Hey, this is a summer. We have a new RBF matchmaking system. No, they need to treat it as small updates, small tweaks, pump them out in a timely manner. And then they recognized something that was important to me. They recognized that PvP players are very passionate about the game, more than most other players. And when they were making these changes, you know, a year ago and stuff, they really didn't understand the hearts of those PvP players. You know, the number of hours people spent PvPing, they would just sit in BA, you know, just dueling. You know, if nothing else is going on, they're just there practicing, training, you know, just dueling people, having fun, like doing an activity which doesn't give them any reward whatsoever, but did it because they loved it. I mean, what's a more purer form of dedication to a game than you being there to play for something other than a reward, right? And he said that going forward, they'll respect the PvPers and focus on, you know, their desire there. And that they don't claim to be perfect, but will try their best, yada, yada, yada. I'm not going to knock him. I'm definitely just going to keep my eyes open. I'm not going to praise this showing either. All the things he said were, you know, true about us, about our history, how players felt and how things transformed, but I don't see the direction yet. The community has changed. You know, back in 2016, 2017, if you got flagged up on and got killed, you just respawn and go back and try to fight it. And if you couldn't, you know, you do something else, call people, rage at them, you know, something. But now if someone gets flagged up on and killed, they get offended. The community's changed, man. And it's not just in BDO, it's overall in MMORPGs. You know, the current generation of MMORPG players are different from, you know, what they were 8 years ago, what they were 16 years ago. It's like people change over time and communities change. I understand. So just trying to bring it back to the glory days isn't going to work. The current generation of players aren't going to like it. The old generation of players aren't all going to come screaming back. Some people might, but you're not going to get the, you know, a tsunami of players coming back for it. It wasn't that great. I mean, it's fond memories, but listen, we did it for nothing a lot of times other than winning like Siege and stuff. But if they want to bring back PvP, it needs to be a lot more focused. It can't just be willy-nilly little updates, the quality of life changes that will suddenly fix everything, because it goes deeper than that. We used to have an identity with this game. The game used to have a spirit to it. It had a heart, and that revolved around the conflict in PvP. It was designed for it, and that's gone. It's been broken, and mending that is not that simple. It's not just turning back the clock. They're gonna have to come up with new ways. Sure, I could probably brainstorm some ideas for them, but that's their job. You know, in the gist of it, I'd probably want to see a more dynamic PvP system. I mean, they really should get to the point where they're doing open world events, dynamic events, events which need PvP, which needs cooperation, which needs you to partner up with people, join parties, work together to accomplish a goal other than mindlessly killing and getting nothing for it. You know, there needs to be strategy involved. You know, they can have different kind of events, you know, maybe like a random Dominion style event, maybe a King of the Hill style event, maybe elite mob spawn and you're fighting to take control of those. Maybe it's a race to first person to kill the elite mob and, you know, the guild that does most damage. There's ways you can do it. Throne Liberty, for as basic as that game is, they've done a decent enough job that gave us enough variety. It's not that difficult what they implemented. There's other games like Guild Wars 2 which has perpetual PvP, like in World versus World and its battleground system, and you know, they have it segregated. So it's not that there's a lack of ideas and methods to do it from. It's the willingness for them to adopt those methods or come up with their own ideas and charge forward. Remember when they came up with War of Roses? They spent an absurd amount of time on it. And that one little game mode that isn't even frequent is not enough to like draw an entire community of players, right? As we saw, did it change anything for BDO players? Not much. The people who still played, you know, went to it, enjoyed it. At least some of them did. And, you know, if not, got some participation out of it. It can't be half-assed. And I'm hoping that going forward, you know, from what they said, they will take a lot more care into it. but it can't be that simple. It's not going to be that simple. The game has so many goddamn classes. It's their main monetization factor. Making new classes, making you buy all that stuff on the Pearl Shop, more weight, more inventory, costumes, yada, yada, yada. And it's a whole ecosystem of monetization they built up around it. You have so many classes. Good luck balancing those classes. It's a difficult fucking task. You know, games like World of Warcraft, they've been doing it for years with less classes, and they've had a difficult ass time. And for their games, we're able to actually measure stuff. In this game, it's different. It's a different type of game entirely because it's action combat and stuff. So they got a steep slope to climb. The class balances are difficult. You know, there's not meaningful content yet. And just turning back the clock, bringing back our old content that was taken away from us isn't sufficient. Hardcore server is a step in the right direction in terms of them coming up with an idea to add something new. Like I said in my last video, AOS was a great addition to the game because it was new content for us to enjoy. Once again, it's their job to come up with these great ideas for us to enjoy, not mine. I mean, I'm a content creator. I can ramble on about my experiences, which span almost 2 decades in MMORPGs, and come up with ideas of my own. I'm sure many of you can too. Let me know in the comment section what kind of PvP content you'd like to see. I honestly don't mind that we lost world PvP to the extent that you're not fighting in grind spots because of how much time you need to spend to get gear. Like if you're that far behind and you need to grind many hours, you don't want to waste your evenings when you have free time to grind, you know, getting beat up by PvP. But at the same time, you shouldn't even find the need to be grinding in your free time. Like some of us work jobs, have family, have responsibilities, have limited time to play. You shouldn't be like, oh, I need to go grind 3 hours now on top of all that. No, you should be like, let's let loose. Let's have some fun. Let's go. So, I mean, for the people who enjoy it, yeah, I mean, I used to enjoy it. I spent many hundreds of hours grinding. It was therapeutic. I just turned my brain off and just, you know, autopilot. It was relaxing. But at the same time, you can only do that for so many hundreds of hours. And I prefer fun over, you know, relaxing. I want to have a good time. I want to have memorable time, make memories. And I'm sure a lot of you want to do that as well. So bottom line is, I'm glad that they acknowledged the things they did in this video. And it was a long time coming. They should have been more receptive of the community, more understanding of the players since they came out. Like, it's not like we're playing for free. We're literally generating revenue that goes into your coffers. Like, we are your customers. We are your clients. The client is always right. And we complained about shit so many times and it just fell on deaf ears. Like, it just doesn't get translated into Korean for them. Like, it just never did. I mean, some ideas did make it through, and it took a long ass time for those to go through. It eventually got there, but it was always little things. When it came to like the heart, the direction of what players were asking for, you guys remember when Choice or somebody made a forum post saying that they didn't want that removal of the single-sided decks, and it definitely had the positive ratio in agreement to that, and that did nothing, literally nothing. Yep. What more do you want than thousands? Literally over 10,000 people must have voted on that, and you're going to ignore that? So kind words, as much as I appreciate it, aren't enough. Saying you understand isn't enough. But I'm not going to knock this guy. I'm going to let him start on a clean slate, at least him, and we're just going to watch. I'm going to just do my own thing, you know, play the game however I want to play it, however little I want to play it, whatever. And hopefully someday it does go in the right direction. Hopefully they do eventually figure things out and bring PvP back before it's too late. And I say that not because of just a singular game that's coming out. I think the level of MMORPGs is going to go up, in the sense that, you know, just seeing the recent successes of some games, they're itching at it. Some of them were failures, but eventually one of them will succeed. And I don't want it to be too late for this game. It's a great game. I love it. But the direction was always a problem. So, you know, fingers crossed. We're just going to sit back and watch. And I hope that it does someday turn around. And always, please let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think of what was talked about in this video. And if you ever see PvP coming back and actually being a main part of the game again, I don't want to just be a doomer. I mean, I doom for a reason, for a purpose, to make enough noise that they will finally get off their ass and make meaningful change. I really do hope it does get better someday, but the clock's ticking. So anyway, like, comment, and subscribe. Check me out at twitch.tv/I'mPansy. More to come, guys. More to come.